Good afternoon, everyone. We are all here today protesting against the same thing. Against the injustice that has occurred to Black Americans in this nation. So when I say no justice, you say no peace. No justice.
No peace.
No justice.
No peace.
No justice.
No peace.
Now I'm going to introduce the organizers of this protest, Kenia and Eshe.
Welcome, everyone. My name is Kenia Ferreira. I'm a graduating senior from Conard High School, former student representative on the Board of Education, and leader of Future Educators of Diversity. We are gathered here today to send a message, to speak up, because our voices have been silenced for far too long, because we're tired of being swept under the rug. This is not about history repeating itself. This is the rug being pulled to reveal the emotion, the pain, the brutality, and the injustice. To reveal that the amount of progression we thought occurred was a facade. This is an open wound. The Band-Aids have been ripped off of us for all those times we covered it with the idea of hope, the idea that one day it'll get better. We're done waiting. No longer will we stand down to having our friends, our brothers, fathers, mothers, sons targeted for the color of their skin. No longer will we hold back our hurt. Some want us to accommodate, to invalidate our feelings. But when someone's in pain, you don't get to justify how they cope. And right now, right here, we're coping. We're expressing ourselves, forcing our voices to be heard the same way our ancestors forced themselves to fight for their freedom. There are 400 plus years of institutionalized racism to be addressed. And in order to properly dismantle these systems, we need to find out how we are a part of the problem. You all have taken the first step. You showed up today for a cause greater than yourself, but this is just the start. Throughout my life, I've moved many times. I've been to schools where everyone looked like me. I've been to schools where no one looked like me. Where do you think the most damage was done when it came to my self-esteem? When it came to accepting my differences? It was where I was considered the minority. I started hearing that word so much that I started to believe that's who I was, less than. So I figured if I couldn't be good at loving myself, I'd have to be good at something else. I chose academics because at least that way I know I'd be going somewhere, that at least I could make my parents proud. My mother came here at 18 from the Dominican Republic knowing not a word of English. Today, she works for the town of West Hartford translating and teaching students English. I told myself that if my mom could turn tables and make it, so can I. I went to school, came home, did homework, read, and repeated. Now that was the easiest part. What wasn't easy was going to school the next day and not being able to raise my hand, not being able to share my answers or my perspective on the stories we read. It's not like someone held my hand down. So what was the problem? See, I didn't feel comfortable in my environment because remember, I was the minority. Not only did I sometimes feel that my opinion was less than, but I didn't trust the students around me would be accepting of a wrong answer. I didn't want people to make excuses for me, saying she doesn't know better, she doesn't have the resources. See, I had high expectations. So now it's freshman orientation, and a senior tells me, you get to choose who you want to be these next 4 years. So I chose to be the person I felt rejected to be my past years. I realized that I couldn't expect people to respect me if I didn't respect myself, if I didn't confide in myself, if I didn't speak up for myself, so I began to. Soon as I finally found my voice, here came the comments. Kenia, you speak too fast. You have an accent. Why do you always have an attitude? Before, those comments would have shut me up. Today, I could say yes, I speak fast, and may have an accent because I'm bilingual. See, my brain comprehends 2 languages instead of 1. Isn't that so cool? And I understand my confidence may have intimidated you, but that's not something I need to apologize for. See, many of you need to look inwards to find the insecurities and resentment that have derived from childhood because hate and stereotypes are taught. It is time to start loving ourselves regardless of color. You do not need to apologize for the melanin in your skin. You do not need to apologize for being white. What we do need is more representation. What we do need is fair and equal treatment. My peers and I should not have to work 5 times harder in the classroom than a white student just to prove that we're worthy of an education. My brothers should not have to feel that they aren't welcomed on the streets because they know how quick the police are willing to incarcerate and even kill them. My niece should not have to come home crying, calling herself ugly because her hair is too curly or her skin too dark. See, because for centuries we've been taught to dislike our features. For centuries we've been told to silence our culture, but all these stereotypes and prejudices are meant to keep us at the bottom, where we don't see ourselves as successful or even beautiful. But we cannot give in. This is a paradox, because at the end of the day, they're listening to our music, reflecting our style, trying to speak like us and admiring our athletes. But God forbid a black man be given the job over a white man. God forbid a black female is the boss because she'll be too angry. See, that's not the problem. Since the beginning of time, we have intimidated them with our potential, intimidated them with our confidence. See, our minds are limitless. Racism strives from insecurity and jealousy, and it is their job to heal. We're finished. West Hartford has made some steps, but we are nowhere near where we need to be. There's discrimination behind closed doors, and the worst part is sometimes people aren't even conscious about it. So bring them to the light. Force there to be something done about it, and don't settle for less. Educate yourself and your peers because ignorance cannot combat ignorance. Today, you will hear the voices of those who are in support of our movement, who have experienced the same injustices and are here not only to express them to you, but to motivate you. I ask that you listen with an open heart and an open mind. Understand your place in this movement. Go out and vote and make your voice be heard. Black lives matter, not just today standing here, but every second of every day. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Eshe Griffith, and I'm one of the organizers of the protest today. I'm a graduating Conard student and an incoming freshman at the illustrious Howard University, and I'm here to tell you all a story. The other day, I was walking to the bank to deposit some money into my account, and I was wearing a hoodie, sweatpants, and sneakers. And as I'm walking, listening to music, I realize that my hands are trembling. I'm paranoid, and I keep turning around and watching my surroundings, afraid of someone sneaking up on me. It was a new feeling I couldn't quite grasp, but I knew why I was feeling this way. It's unconscious fear, anger, anguish, because I know that the destruction in this country is a destruction that I can fall victim to. I've watched enough murder videos to last me a lifetime. I'm desensitized to it. I'm desensitized, but I'm scared. I don't sleep through the night. I get panic attacks. I can't make the best of my senior year, and I can't live. See, unlike many of you all, my childhood was different. I was never afraid of the imaginary boogeyman under the bed, ready to pull my feet because my boogeyman was real. My boogeyman wore blue, had a badge, and swore to protect and serve. Instead, he didn't. My boogeyman pulled the lifeless body of George Floyd onto a stretcher, not once checking his pulse. My boogeyman shot up the house of Breonna Taylor while the actual suspect sat in the precinct. My boogeyman allowed George Zimmerman to execute Trayvon Martin and allowed him to mock his death after his acquittal. My boogeyman killed Tamir Rice, a 12-year-old, shot to death for playing with a BB gun, and yes, his killer still walks free. As I progressed through school, I had the opportunity of living in Brooklyn, New York, where everyone I knew looked like me. Our experiences were alike. Being Caribbean and being an immigrant, I was able to reflect and soak up my culture, and my eyes opened up, allowing me to see a different side of America. I always catch myself wondering who I would have been if I stayed in West Hartford for my childhood. Would I deny my blackness? Allow students to call me the N-word for fun? Watch people draw blackface and sit silent for fear of looking like the oddball out? Would I act oblivious to the mass murders of Black people and act as though I'm not one of them? The world may never know. There is a human genocide going on right now, a massacre in the making. As I sit home watching my Black brothers and sisters and their allies, I yell to the universe to protect them, to serve them, to do what the boogeyman is supposed to do. I pray for George Floyd's murderers to be charged fairly, convicted, sentenced to life where they suffered just like George did. All I ever wished for was to dream of dandelions and roses in a clear field, but I can't. Not when I see my people trampled on the ground, murdered senselessly, like roses in the dirt, smushed and yet vibrant. Their legacy lives on. I hear the voices of those lost under the hoofs that smashed them, their blood laying in my hands, laying in your hands, laying in America's hands. They say this is the land of the free, but how can it be free if my dreams are in chains? Even though George Floyd's murderers are arrested and charged, the fight doesn't stop here. This fight, this battle, this war is a war that is stemming from the years of brutality, the thousands of Black bodies that fill the cemetery, and so I say some of their names. Eric Garner, John Crawford, Michael Brown, Dante Parker, Ezell Ford, Tamir Rice, Alton Sterling, Philando Castile, Oscar Grant, Sandra Bland, Freddie Gray, Sam DuBose, Philip White, Kimani Gray, Alana Staley, Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, Tatiana Jefferson, Jordan Edwards, Ayanna Jones, Khalif Browder, Trayvon Martin, and the countless others whose names didn't get a hashtag, we remember you, your lives mattered. So when you see this nation, looting and burning and protesting, remind yourself that we aren't doing this because just George Floyd died. We're doing this because we want you to recognize the thousands of Black people who are victim to ignorance, racism, and classless discrimination. And don't act surprised. Looting and rioting are synonyms for what makes up America. Looting is how America got this land. Looting is what got Native Americans into camps and off their God-given land. Looting is what America does to Africa, stealing gold and oil. Looting is what America does to Black culture. So when you condemn people for burning down Target, keep in mind that the act of looting is learned behavior. People are tired. I am tired. This country was built off the backs of slaves and servants, of immigrants and indigenous. 99 years ago, the Tulsa Massacre occurred. Black businesses, Black homes, and Black people were killed. Today, the revolution has begun. A system cannot fail those it was never designed to protect. It is our duty and responsibility to not only fix this country, but to destroy and rebuild this nation, a nation that never once intended for my people to advance. Do it for the future. Do it so that children like my 6-year-old sister can grow up in a society where she isn't a target at the park. And so I turn to you all. Make those phone calls, attend those protests, call your Black friends and offer them support. Stop appropriating black culture if you aren't willing to fight for us. Stop dating black men and women if you aren't willing to fight for them. Say the names of those lost. Don't just let this be in the moment, because this is my life every day. This is my fight every day. Because while many of you can go home and take off the mask and laugh and joke and live life freely, my scars don't fade. My blood still sheds, so speak up. Because if you are silent, you are part of the problem. If you don't speak up, you are supporting and enabling the persecution and terroristic acts inflicted upon people like me. I could be next. Don't let my blood lay in your hands. As I head off to college this fall, attending one of the most prestigious historically black institutions in this nation, I know that this is my calling. My dreams are clear. And while I pursue my dreams of being an engineer, I will pursue my dreams of fighting this war. I will be attending school in the nation's capital, Washington, D.C. Howard University is a 15-minute drive and a 40-minute train ride to the White House. That is a 15-minute drive to scream Black Lives Matter and a 40-minute ride to tell the president that when the shooting starts, the battle begins. I don't think you clearly understand me. Howard University is a 15-minute drive and a 40-minute train ride to the White House. That is a 15-minute ride to scream Black Lives Matter and a 40-minute train ride to tell your president that when the shooting starts, the battle begins. My generation is a powerful one. We came into this country during 9/11. We experienced the rise of technology and overtook social media. Our norm for most of our lives was a black president. We lived through mass school shootings, publicized police brutality, and we are at the age where we can finally make change. This is a fight that requires everyone. Whether you're black, white, Hispanic, Indian, blue, green, or purple, your voice matters. Use your voice to bring change. That is the only way we can build. To the families of those who have lost their sons, daughters, friends, and family members, I stand with you. I fight for you. To the little black girls who go unnoticed, your skin absorbs the sun, your hair defies the wind and gravity. You are perfection, magical, and be proud to be who you are, even when the world tries to take you down. And like Ida B. Wells said, the way to right wrongs is to turn the light of truth upon them. Thank you.
We will now have Chief Riddick, Chief of the West Hartford Police Department, speak.
Thank you. Thank you. As I stand before you and look at the sea of humanity, I have to ask the question, are we at a moment in time on a linear line where there is no change? Are we at just this section where we are feeling some type of way and then we go back to quote unquote what is normal? Time will tell. Or are we at an intersection where you have to turn either left or right and you can't go forward? Forward means more of the same. Left or right means change. What are we going to do? Change. Change. As I look to my left, and these leaders, strong, full of energy, as I look at myself, not as strong and not as much energy as them, as I go into my 54th year of life, many times when people who look like me talk about race or talk about prejudice, people don't believe us. Why is it that big a deal? Just get over it. Well, I can tell you in my lifetime, I have been called the N-word many times. I have been spit on because of my race, because I was a lot younger and not as big as I am now. I don't know why I never told anybody, why I never shared the stories. Up until this year, I never told anyone until February of this year. Individually, I've told some folks, but not in a public setting. When I was in college, I answered the phone. My roommates, we had 3 of us in a room, and my roommate was from Pennsylvania, and somebody called, and we talked for about 10, 15 minutes. And when we hung up, I talked to my roommate. My roommate said, "Hey, Big V, hey, how you doing?" He's like, "Yeah, my friend asked," he said, "Hey, I thought you had a black roommate. He doesn't sound black." That really happened. My roommate, again, who was from Pennsylvania, said, he didn't mean anything by it. He says, "I'm not used to being around minorities or blacks. Even our McDonald's have white people in them." That's a reality. Some of you, when you came to the Martin Luther King ceremony this year, you may have heard this story already, but I want to, for those of you who didn't. My daughter, 5 years ago, she goes to a parochial school at the time, high school, sitting at a table with 4 of her schoolmates who were white females. And they were talking about their fathers who said to their daughters, "Do not bring a black man home. Do not have a black boyfriend. Do not embarrass the family." And as I shared a few months ago, and I'll share with you now, it was really my daughter's first time in being struck with race and prejudice. And I asked her the very simple question. I said, "Daughter," and these were prominent business owners and managers in their corporations, "who do you think they would hire if it came down to a black person or a white person?" And she put her head down and said, "The white person." I said, "Who do you think they would choose even if the black person had more credentials?" She said, "Probably the white person." Does that mean all whites are bad? No. Does that mean all blacks are good? No. But it does mean we are at an intersection. We are not linear. There has to be a change. Regarding law enforcement, I will say this. Every one of those police officers out there, including yours truly, and they know this is true, we would put our life on the line for you. We would die for you. And I have told them in a roll call, if you're not willing to sacrifice your life for the public, then give up your badge. I don't want you. But as I say that, I cannot be foolish enough to think that there's not a police culture out there. For some of you, what you saw with George Floyd was something new. People can't believe it. For people like me, just another example. Just another example. But this time, something is different. Nationwide, globally, you see people protesting. Young people. When you look at people in history, George Farmer, Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, and the list goes on and on. When they started, they were a little older than you. People forget that. They look back, you think they were old. They weren't. They were young like you. Take this energy, sustain this change, treat people with respect and dignity, and we can make a difference. America, we have a problem. America, we shall fix the problem. Thank you for your time.
Good afternoon, everyone. Well, I won't say good afternoon, I'll just say afternoon. So glad to see so many of you today. And the reasons why we are here today are unfortunate. However, something that stands out for me is a post I recently saw on Facebook with a little black girl holding a sign that said, "We said Black Lives Matter. Never said only Black Lives Matter. We know all lives matter. We just need your help with hashtag Black Lives Matter, for Black lives are in danger." And that's the reality of the situation. That is what brings all of us here today. And to see that students, young people, have put this initiative together speaks volumes. And it's inspiring. I am reminded of my younger days when I was a student, especially my years in college. I proudly attended Spelman College in Atlanta, Georgia. Now, Spelman College is a historically black college or university. And many times folks want to say, "Oh boy, isn't that repeating the things that we're talking about now?" Absolutely not. The operative word is historically, because that institution, like so many others, was started during a time when people of color were not permitted to attend colleges. Now, during my 4 years at Spelman, I had another home. This was the place I went to for weekends, for good home-cooked meals, just for good mother talk. And I say mother talk because Mrs. A was my other mom. She was the woman who has been a part of our family from before I was born, both she and her husband. And so when I went to college, that is where I spent my weekends. Now, to me, that's Mrs. A. To many of you, I'm referring to Juanita Abernathy. Juanita Abernathy is the wife of Ralph David Abernathy. Ralph David Abernathy was the best friend to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Don't be mistaken. Any marches that were had, any protests that were had, when you had Dr. King, you had Reverend Abernathy. When you had Coretta Scott King, you had Juanita Abernathy. Because of their efforts and so many more, we are where we are today. But as I said, I grew up knowing her as my other mom, Mrs. A. When you go to her home, the pictures on the walls was like being in a museum. You saw pictures of them marching. You also saw pictures of where their home was bombed. Now, Mrs. A has been a part of our family throughout, and I had the pleasure of being able to see her shortly before she passed away. She passed away last year in October, and in June, I stayed at her home, because that was my other home, while I was attending a friend's wedding. And when I got there, she said, "Hey, sweetheart, there's your room, and here's your bathroom." But what has her at the forefront of my mind is I'm remembering one particular King holiday weekend. I believe I was either a sophomore or junior at Spelman. And I was at her house, because again, that was my weekend getaway. And Mrs. A said, "All right, sweetheart, get dressed. We're going to go to a family get-together." I said, "Oh, okay." Got dressed, hopped in the car, went with Mrs. A to whose home I did not know. Walk into the house, and I see several people there, including Coretta Scott King. So as we're eating and bonding, I'm feeling like a fan, like, oh my gosh, I'm here with history. And at one point, we were sitting on the couch, and to one side was Mrs. Abernathy, to the other side of me was Coretta Scott King. And on the television, we were watching footage celebrating Dr. King's birthday and all of the accomplishments and the struggles that he went through, including images of marches and images of people being hurt, beaten, hoses directed towards them. And while this is happening, I look over to Mrs. King and I said, they made reference to Spelman College because Dr. King went to Morehouse College. And when they said that, I looked at Mrs. King and I said, "Oh, I go to Spelman." And she just smiled and nodded her head. I say that to say that during that time, I'm watching that thinking, we're talking about history. And I shared that experience with my two daughters, talking about history. But look at where we are today. History has yet again repeated itself, which brings me to what has sparked such outrage across our country, and that is the death of George Floyd. The death of George Floyd, precipitated by Breonna Taylor, precipitated by Ahmaud Arbery, precipitated by thousands and thousands of others, is what has sparked the outrage we have today. And I hope that this outrage will turn into action. I think back to the March on Selma. What prompted that march was the death of Jimmy Lee Jackson. And if you don't know who he is, you need to know. He was a man who fought for this country. He was a veteran, came back to the States, and was a peaceful advocate for voters' rights for African Americans. And one day, during a peaceful protest, he was beaten by police officers and later shot and killed by a state trooper. His death is what sparked marches. His death is what sparked advocacy, and his death is why we have the Voter Rights Act today. Please don't let actions like that, please don't let actions like what's happening today to go unnoticed and unfed. But when I think also about Jimmy Lee Jackson, again, I mentioned he was a veteran. He fought for this country. Oh, he's not the only person of color who has fought for this country. When I think back centuries, I think of the first American who died fighting in the American Revolutionary War. I didn't say the first black man, I said the first American, and that was Crispus Attucks. Let us not forget that black people have been fighting for this country from the beginning. And as we fight for this country, we need for this country to fight for us. Now, when you see images like we saw of George Floyd, that sparked something within you. But please don't let that be the only piece to ignite a flame within you to speak out and fight for others. We need to address this on all levels. When you see someone in line and you go into a store and you know that that person, who may be a person of color, was waiting there way before you, but the attendant goes to you first and asks, would you like to be helped? You need to use your voice and to speak out. When you are someone, a black man, let's say a husband, who is trying to plan a weekend getaway for his wife to surprise her, and he makes arrangements through an Airbnb and sent forward the paperwork and back and forth communication, everything was a go, everything was confirmed, until the person asked to send a photo ID. And once that person sends the photo ID, oh, all of a sudden, I'm sorry, the space is no longer available. That's not a story. That happened to my husband. And there are many other stories like that. I say that to say that the level of involvement can't just be for something significant, huge, big like this. We have to have it happen in all dimensions, at all levels. Young people, I'm going to close with this. Shortly after I was elected onto the Board of Education, which I have to say is quite an honor. And I also want to say that all of my board colleagues are aware that I'm speaking before you today. They all are aware of the purpose of this peaceful protest, and they all, without hesitation, gave their full support. So I thank them for that. And what's important to know when it comes to speaking out for what's right, that crosses party lines. That acknowledges humanistic lines, so everyone should be involved. I will share with you what Mrs. A, or Juanita Abernathy, shared to me when I asked her, do you have any words of advice to share with our young people? And this is what she said. Young people, the ball is in your court. The direction it goes is up to you. There are doors that have not been opened that you can work to open. But please, don't let those doors that were opened close. You must keep them open. Thank you for speaking up. Thank you for speaking out. Continue to fight for our rights.
Y'all still here? No justice? No justice? My name is Ferreira, a former Conard grad, and I need you all to hear my voice. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say or do will automatically be used against you because your blackness is a crime and has already indicated your guilt. America, I need to understand why this system was built, working just fine against the black man. The system is not broken. It's working just as planned. Please make me understand why my ancestors have fought the same fight, yet little has changed. People, do you hear me? Things out there are still the same. Silence is the biggest enemy. We must speak up. Justice will come only if we do not give up. The battle is not over. It has just begun. But I'm so tired of black mothers closing the castle caskets on their dead black sons. My people are tired, but still holding on. But how many dead black bodies will we keep piling on? God is my witness. He's declared it now. God is my witness, and I'll say it loud and proud. There's a light at the end of the tunnel. Stay close. There's a light at the end of the tunnel. Do not give up hope. This nation will change. This nation will change. The movement has already begun, but this will only be successful if we stand as one. Division will only cause more damage, and I truly want you to understand this. Until you realize my life matters just as much as yours. Yes, all lives matter, but my people are targeted, not yours. Racism can never fully go away, I'll admit it. Because this nation was built on the foundation of hate. Y'all did this. We must dismantle this entire system. Throw it away. Black lives will always matter regardless of what you say. The change we want must come from our hearts. That is truly the only way. No amount of legislation can make racism disappear until we as people finally say, man shall not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. Change your hearts and accept it proud. Black lives matter. Say it loud. This fight for justice starts within. But y'all first need to understand, all lives can't matter if blacks can't win. I'm grateful for those that came before me and paved the way. But we have to be the generation that makes the change today. Say their names. Never forget. And rest in peace to those we have not yet met. I'm tired of being a hashtag. This all has to end. As George Floyd took his last breath and said, "I can't breathe," I say to you now, West Hartford, Connecticut, neither can we. No justice, no peace. Thank you.
Cece from Hall, if you would like to come up and speak.
It's been 7 years since my parents made the decision to move from West Hartford with the hopes of providing my sister and I with the opportunity of a better education. Why is it that some families of color feel the need to move their whole family from their hometowns to seek better opportunities for their children? All students of color should have the equal opportunity to experience an educational system that gives them the tools to succeed in their lives, regardless of their race or their zip code. The Black Lives Matter movement and everything that it stands for, and the tragic death of George Floyd and every other brown and black person who has died due to police brutality, is something even bigger. But this is a time to educate ourselves, not just about the discrimination of the black community that they encounter every day, but also the inequalities of Latino, Indian, Asian, and other ethnic and race groups face every day. We cannot be oblivious to their struggles. We are all one people. We are more alike than we are different. Being a Latina of African descent, I have faced racial profiling and discrimination, and it is not something that everybody or anybody should be subject to. Remember that Hispanics have been singled out by people in their own lives. Remember that Hispanics have been told to their faces that they should be deported. I myself have been told that, and it is hard to understand why a human being would say that to someone. Replaying that event in my head, I asked myself, why did I laugh? I laughed because I was afraid. I thought that maybe if I stood up, then they wouldn't like me anymore, that they wouldn't approve of me anymore, that I wouldn't have any more friends. But now, I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid to educate my peers on how hurtful those remarks are and how people of color do not fit the stereotype that society has created for us. No one's identity or culture should be the source of a joke. We cannot be oblivious to the reality of those who surround us today. The Black Lives Matter movement has given me strength. I'm not afraid anymore. I now have the strength to use my voice. Now, I please encourage you to look around yourselves. Look at the people who are surrounding you. Please look. See that these people are here today to fight injustices. See the people here. Do not see them for their race, their gender, their religion, their sexual orientation, or any other classifier that society has ingrained into our minds, but see them as equals. We are all human beings who deserve to be treated with respect and dignity, regardless of the way we look on the outside. We are united right now, and that doesn't end when we leave here today. Thank you.
If we could please have State Representative Tammy Exum and Earl Exum come up to the mic, please. Tammy and Earl Exum. We'll now have Conard alumni Andy Tran come up and speak.
Good afternoon, everyone. I had a speech prepared, but I want to take a few seconds to highlight something to everyone. I can count the number of black teachers I had at Conard High School for 4 years on my hand. 0. I can actually count the entire number of staff of color at Conard High School on my hand. 1 hand. Think about that. How can you care about black people when there are no black teachers in your school? Thank you. On to my speech. Asian Americans are the largest racial minority in West Hartford, and we are not innocent when it comes to racism. We are used as a model minority in America. What is a model minority? The model minority myth states that because Asian Americans are able to overcome struggles, their racial struggles, that means that black people have no excuse, that they must be lazy. And this is a lie. This is a lie fabricated This is a lie fabricated by white people to be a racial wedge between Asian Americans and black people. This is a lie meant to hide the systematic disadvantages that black people face. This is a lie that allows white America to continue to justify their prejudices and racism towards black people. Unfortunately, Asian people have fallen into this carefully laid out trap. For too long, Asian Americans have also participated in the anti-black rhetoric that is institutionalized into us by white society. We partake in jokes made by white people at black people's expense. We let white people use us as their token minority so that they don't have to give black people a seat at the table. We have become complacent in letting white people use us as a way to further the oppression of black people. We are guilty, and it's time that ends. We must reject the narrative that we are a model minority. We must hold our community accountable when we say racist things against black people too. We must also be allies and defend black people, especially when black people are not there to defend themselves. It is time that we, as a racial minority, fight against the oppression of other racial minorities instead of turning a blind eye and being happy that is not us. It is time that we support our black brothers and sisters. It is time that we as Asian people say Black Lives Matter. Thank you.
If Carol Blanks can come up now to speak. I don't know if she's here.
No peace. No justice. No peace. No justice. No peace. No justice. No peace.
If Cheyenne's here to come up and speak.
Hi, I'm going to start off by introducing myself. My name is Cheyenne Lopez. I'm a graduating senior from Conard High School. I'm Puerto Rican, and I'm a minority. I fear for my life, but more importantly, I fear for the lives of my fellow black brothers and sisters. I'm outraged and disgusted by everything going on in the news right now and happening on social media. I just want to ask, how many more innocent black lives are going to be taken by the police? Eric Garner, killed 2014. Michael Brown, killed 2014. Manuel Ellis, killed March 2020. Breonna Taylor, killed March 2020. And George Floyd, killed May 2020. Just a short list of the many lives taken by racist cops. They were taken from their families, friends, co-workers, and neighbors. George Floyd had to die for us to speak up and fight for ourselves and our black friends and family. Racism is nothing new, but now we have the fortune to be more aware of it. We have the fortune to be able to bring this issue at an international spotlight with the click of a few buttons. Let's continue to utilize everything we have now at our fingertips. This is a time in our lives where things are chaotic. All of us here already have decided that we are going to fight for a cause we believe in. I challenge everyone here to continue to be a voice in this war. I challenge everyone here to make sure we are heard, and I challenge everyone here to make sure we love and hug our loved ones tonight. As recent events have shown, we don't know how long we have. Speak up and use your voice, please. To my Black brothers and sisters, I stand with you. Everyone here stands with you. Thank you.
If there's anyone in the audience who would like to come up and voice their message as well, you're allowed to. I'm looking at you. I can see you.
Hi. This is for my beautiful mother who is out in the crowd somewhere. She's a proud mixed woman of color. That sounds really stupid. I shouldn't have said that. Where is she? Hi, Mom. Okay. I just want to say that sometimes it's like you're too Black to hang out with your white friends, and you're too white to hang out with your Black friends, and in February, I was at a library with my brother and his friend, and I was kicked out. And I didn't want to say it was racial profiling because I was too scared to say those words. But now, after the death of a Black man, one of my Black brothers, I think I should say it. It was probably racial profiling. And no! And I hope she sees this because she called me a name that I can't say because, I might get censored. I think you know what word I'm talking about. And I just gotta say to finish this off before I get in trouble or anything, why should the texture of my hair make me a target? It shouldn't. Black Lives Matter. Okay, I'm done.
Natalie.
Hi, everyone. Breonna Taylor. Say her name. Breonna. Breonna. Brianna's birthday was supposed to be Friday. Instead of celebrating, her family is mourning. The police officers that murdered her in cold blood in her own home have not been arrested. They have not even been fired. That is far from okay. We must continue saying her name and saying the names of everyone we have lost until there is justice. Say her name. Breonna. Breonna. Thank you.
For 8 minutes and 46 seconds, it was the time of the officer that killed George Floyd. Knee was on his neck. So for 8 minutes and 46 seconds, we're going to ask that you all kneel in honor and memory of George Floyd.
Please stay silent during this time in order to give memory to those whose lives were lost.
That is how long it took for George Floyd to die. That is why you should be outraged. Up next is Earl and Tammy Exum.
Hey, good afternoon. I'm going to say something that for me is uncharacteristically a little bit controversial. But give me 10 minutes to make my case. I'm going to quote my sources because when I was in college, we always said you got to quote your source. And now that we have the internet, you can read anything on the internet. You need to understand the source. So I'm going to give you information from the 1619 Project, which was in the New York Times, a book called Before the Mayflower by an author named Bennett, These Truths by Jill Lepore, a book called Stamp, and they even have a teenager's version, which I highly recommend, by Jason Reynolds and Ibram X. Kendry. Finally, I'll quote from an exhibit at the Apex Museum in Atlanta, Georgia. And they have an exhibit, and the motto on the exhibit is, "Our history did not begin in chains." I'm the president of the West Hartford African American Social and Cultural Organization, and we're going to put these sources on our website. So what action can you take? Educate yourself. The history you learned in school, if you went to a public school in the United States, is a white supremacist history. That's the controversial statement. When education became compulsory in 1852 to 1930, there was an objective to teach a nationalist pride and commitment to our country. But we had to reconcile the aftermath of the Civil War and the lack of fairness in our country. Since the Constitution was written, in our nation there was a notion that all men are created equal under the law. But yet there was a lack of fairness. Thomas Jefferson struggled with this. As many of you may know, he fathered children with a woman who was of both black and white lineage. He wrote a case in which he tried to consider his children and whether they were white or black. And he tried to deduce that, in fact, these children were white, and one of his daughters from this marriage actually passed for white, married a white person in Washington, D.C., and for the rest of her lineage passed for white. My source is the book, These Truths by Jill Lepore. I say this to say that race is a construct. It's not really, there's no science really to support race. Though for many years, many have tried. How do you determine what's white and what is black? Is blonde hair and blue eyes, is that white? Then if you're brunette with brown eyes, are you then lesser than? Is someone with one black grandparent better than someone with two black grandparents? How many great-grandparents have to be white for you to be considered white? The fact is, every human being's genetics can be traced to Ethiopia. Now that we all do genetic testing for fun and to learn our lineage, everyone has DNA that is the same as someone who is from Ethiopia. Ethiopia is where the first organized governments began, the first civilization, the first tools smelted from iron, the first agriculture, the first language, the first writing on paper, the first libraries, written communication, art, philosophy, domestication of animals, architecture, universities, mathematics. It's all from Ethiopia. For our number system today, we don't use Roman numerals, which is when I was in school, we thought everything began in Greece and Rome. But we don't use Roman numerals, we use Arabic numerals. Babylonian mathematics dates back to over 500 years before Christ. It was recorded on clay tablets. It records fractions, algebra, quadratic equation, cubic equations, and Pythagorean's theorem. It's from 500 years before Christ. The Babylonian mathematics built upon the Egyptian mathematics, which was recorded on papyrus. It included geometry, calculations for surface area, volume, dimensions, architectural engineering, algebra, and the quadratic equation. Timbuktu had the greatest universities, including the University of Sankara. The oldest continuous university in the world is in Morocco. Many Greeks, including Homer, the author of the Iliad and the Odyssey, revered African universities as the places of highest learning. My source, the book, Before the Mayflower, Chapter 1, by Lerone Bennett Jr., and the Apex Museum in Atlanta, with an exhibit that explains our history did not begin in chains. But that's not what they teach you in West Hartford public schools. Black people were slaves and they had civil rights. We teach white history. We ignore the thousands of years of African American history. We just teach the last 400 years of black subjugation. It makes black people feel bad and white people feel better. Babies don't show racial preference. Race had no standing before the need to justify colonization and slavery. Now I want to tell a story that I learned in college, and that's when I felt like I had been gaslighted. I'm going to talk about the term gaslighting in a minute. The Statue of Liberty. Does anyone know from where the Statue of Liberty came? France. Why did they give it to us? It was a gift, let me tell you. It was commissioned in 1881, over 100 years past the Revolutionary War. So if you thought it was related to the Revolutionary War, that's quite a distance, many generations from there. But within 2 decades of the end of the Civil War, it was commissioned by 2 ardent and adamant abolitionists. If you look at the ankle of the Statue of Liberty, the Statue of Liberty is shackled. It's shackled at the ankle, and the shackle is broken. The Statue of Liberty was made out of copper. When it arrived in the United States, it was brown. It was a brown woman who had just been freed from a shackle. It was done by abolitionists. It later oxidized, because copper in the open environment oxidized, and it turned green. In 1906, Congress approved returning it to its original color. But our country at that time was in a horrible condition as it related to race relations, and both blacks and whites opposed it. Blacks because their condition was so poor at that time, they did not support the whole concept of this country being a place of liberty. Why don't we learn that in our schools? I don't understand. I learned a lot about the Statue of Liberty, a symbol of immigration, but the true origin wasn't taught. Our curriculum ignores black agency to achieve freedom and civil rights. It ignores the systematic bestowing of white privilege to ensure that poor whites and poor blacks don't have common cause against greed and power. Our curriculum fails to cover the effects of discrimination, Jim Crow, black codes, lynching, segregation, redlining, voter suppression, and the criminal justice system and mass incarceration. We may learn about Brown versus Board of Education and the desegregation of schools, but we don't learn about Milliken versus Bradley in Long Island that allows for local school districting and local school funding that supports school segregation. Along with redlining, these institutions systematically deny African American people equity. And yet, we are resilient. We have produced great minds and talent. Thurgood Marshall, Frederick Douglass, Charles Drew, the great physician, Serena Williams, Tiger Woods, Lewis Latimer, who actually contributed, I would love to tell you more, but I don't have time. Lewis Latimer's contribution to the light bulb. The light bulb was actually, we attributed to Thomas Edison, but a man in the UK called a Swan, he also developed the light bulb at the same time. It was Lewis Latimer's filament that differentiated it and made Edison's invention a better invention. Benjamin Banneker. Benjamin Banneker, from his head, redrew the map of Washington, D.C. after the French civil architect left the country with the plans. We don't learn about these things. What if we got out of the way and let black people succeed without barriers? It would help our country. There would be so many more contributions that we could have. There's a new law in Connecticut that requires the teaching of black history. The West Hartford African American Social and Cultural Organization is meeting regularly with the West Hartford Public Schools and is encouraged by the commitment. But we must move faster. Black people have been gaslighted by our education system. Now let me explain gaslighting. This is a term that means manipulated by psychological means into questioning your own sanity. You may have heard this term in the Me Too movement, where women that are raped and assaulted are made to feel like it's their fault. In the case of blacks, we are made to feel we are somehow responsible for our own demise. Like with Ahmaud Arbery, who was chased, cornered, had a gun pointed at him. And the defense is that the person who shot him was shooting him in self-defense. If we believe that, we've been gaslighted. Another example of gaslighting. When athletes kneel to protest police brutality, we make it about the flag. It's not about the flag. I believe if people learn the correct black history versus the current white supremacy that is taught, people will respect black people. They'll respect their culture. They'll respect them as individuals. They'll respect them as a people. And they wouldn't be able to justify killing someone as if a life didn't matter.
Good afternoon. I'm Tammy Exum. I am state representative for the 19th district, which includes part of West Hartford, Avon, and Farmington. I am the first African American representative for this district. I am also the mother of 3 sons, the wife of Earl, the daughter of Franklin, a black man. And today I want to speak to the youth. Although I've lived in West Hartford for 20 years, I was born and raised in North Carolina. I grew up in a time where my kindergarten class was the first integrated class, which meant it was the first class where black kids and white kids attended school together. There were 3 of us black kids there. I
always had an awareness of race. Race was as natural as anything that I had ever seen. And one of the benefits, to speak to Earl's point, of growing up in a place that had been recently integrated was that I had a lot of black teachers. I had amazing role models, assistant principals. I had church members, church leaders. So I had a lot of knowledge of black leadership. But I also had a keen awareness of race. However, I never assigned value to race. I did not know that until I became older. And I realized that race, just the color of your skin, meant that you were devalued if your skin was brown or black. I was fortunate to have a mother who was a history teacher, and she would lead and tell me about the accomplishments of black people and instill me with pride. But as I got older, I tell you, I was aware when I would go to towns or somewhere outside of my town or sometimes within my town at certain times of day, you could not be there. There were Confederate flags, and there would be KKK rallies down Main Street.
I want you to give yourselves a round of applause because you came out for this movement that's called Black Lives Matter. Give yourselves a round of applause. My name is Carol Anderson Blanks. I am your West Hartford Town Councilor. I want to acknowledge my other council members who are out here this afternoon with all of us. I want to acknowledge my other elected officials, our state rep, Tammy Exum, and her husband, Earl Exum. And I want to acknowledge our great mayor, Sherry Cantor. And before I start my remarks, I just want to acknowledge and remind everybody, this is a huge issue and a huge movement that has begun. But at the same time, I want each and every one of you to continue to remember that we are still in the middle of a pandemic and we are losing people every single day to this virus. And the black and brown community is the hardest hit. So as we begin to talk about this movement and Black Lives Matter, I want you all to understand that our community are still the community that are disenfranchised and still have the highest numbers in these disparities. So we have a lot of work to be done going forward. I also want to give my condolences to the Floyd family and to all the other black lives that we have lost in this pandemic called racism. I know a lot has been said here today that has come before I arrived. And I really don't want to repeat what was already said and what we've all heard over the past 13 days or so. This is the 13th day of our protest. 13 days! This is historic. 13 days, not just in the United States of America, but our movement has grown across the world. People are speaking out. They're saying enough is enough. We are sick and tired of being sick and tired. Now, many of our Caucasian brothers and sisters have reached out to us, and I thank you. You want to know how can you help? What can you do? I want to tell you, stand with us like you're standing with us today. Stand up for us. When you see wrong, call it out. When you know somebody is racist, call them out. Check them racist jokes. Stop with the racist slurs. Stop it. We are human beings. We are human at the core. Our blood runs red just like everybody else. Black, brown, and every other ethnicity. Now we know it exists, okay? And we can talk about it all day and all night. But the charge is, what are we going to do about it? Are you going to get involved, or are you going to stand on the sidelines? Are you going to get involved in those boards that Representative Exum just said? Are you going to look around, and when you're the only black and brown one in the room, or if you're only the white one in the room, are you going to question and ask, where are the black and brown people? Do you mean to tell me we don't have any qualified black and brown people? That's not true. Hold them accountable. This is not a Democrat issue. This is not a Republican issue. This is not an independent issue. This is a human issue. Enough is enough. I'm a mother. I have 3 daughters. I'm a wife. I'm a child of an immigrant. My parents are from Jamaica and from Cuba. They elected to come to this country because they wanted a better life for themselves and a better life for their children and their grandchildren to come. I don't think that this was the life they anticipated. They weren't anticipating and being discriminated against because of the color of their skin. They want to be judged on their skill set, on the experience that they bring to the table. They want to contribute to the bottom line, just like everybody else. That means we want to be treated like everybody else. Are there problems in our policies and our systems? Sure they are. That's why you all, right, the electorate, you'll hold us accountable. Phone call, show up at the meetings, send an email, send a text, call people out. Tell them why you don't like this policy, why the policy may need to be a change. It's an old policy. Perhaps it worked 400 years ago or 300 years ago. We are now in 2020. Why are we still dealing with the same issue? Why? Many families come to this town because of what? Education. Our education is the top 10 in the country. So they come to this town because they want their kids to be educated. They want, when their kids are done with 12 years of schooling, that they can get into a good college. And perhaps you don't want to go to college, but you have the skill set for career ready. So that means you can show up. You can do the work. You can listen. You are trainable. That's what our system offers. And if that's what our system offers, then we got to look at the other policies. We got to raise those policies up to where we are today. We're in 2020. Our systems, whether they're in this town hall, whether they're in education, whether they're in businesses, should reflect our population. Does it reflect our population, people? Yes or no? So that means it's up to each and every one of you to do something about it. And how do we do that? How do we do that? We vote! And we show up. We don't make excuses. We need to show up at 6. In fact, we need to be there at 5:30. And bring your family, bring your friends. Whether you're in Connecticut or whether you have family across the country, call them up and remind them. It's time to vote. Did you vote? Are you going to vote? Volunteer, as Representative Exum said. Bring somebody else to vote. Sign up and carpool or help the elderly to come and vote. Just help with the absentee ballots. And if you don't know how, if you don't know what to do, phone call the registrar of voters. They'll tell you what to do. Get involved in your town committees. Like I said, I don't care if you're Republican or you're Democrat. Get involved. Get involved. If you don't get involved and you don't vote, there is not much more you can say. Right or wrong? Come on, people. Now, I know that we all can do better, right? So now the charge is to do better. Let's not just talk about it. Let's be about it. Let's put one foot in front of the other and let's march on. Stop time marching. We've been doing it for too long. You all received the census. Complete that census. That's a message from our mayor. Complete the message and go out and vote. We can stop the pandemic of racism. It's in each and every one of our power to do so. But it's time for us to stop talking and start doing. We got to put some action into this narrative and make a change. We cannot be at this same place in another 50 years with our children and our grandchildren talking about, we remember when we were on town hall. We remember when we had the protests. We remember when we had the rally. We remember when they were protesting all over the world. No, this is a movement, and this movement needs to be done for a change. We have to hold each and every one of us accountable. The time is now, everybody. Right now. Right now. I'm just going to leave you with this last thought. Okay, I know many of you have participated in a number of protests. Okay, I know many of you are still reaching out saying, what can we do and how can we do it? All right, now, if you want to do something and you're looking for an organization or a coalition, and you say to yourself, that doesn't exist, then you start it. You be the first one. You initiate change. We can do it, West Hartford. Rise up and make a change. Make demands. Our Black lives matter, just as all lives matter. Thank you, and I'll be watching.
Let's give it one more time for Carol Blanks. I hope y'all still here. We have two more amazing speakers coming up. Since Kevin Booker is not here yet, I'm going to welcome up Gabby.
No peace! No peace!
Breonna Taylor, she had a birthday on Friday. She would have been 27 years old. 27 years old. She didn't get a chance to even experience her birthday. When I think about justice, wow. The first thing that comes to my mind is I think of a poem that was written less than 20 years ago. 100 years ago, by Langston Hughes. I too sing America. And it goes like this. I too sing America. I am the darker brother. They send me to eat in the kitchen when company comes. But I laugh. Ha ha ha. Eat well and grow strong. Tomorrow, I'll sit at the dinner table when company comes. Nobody dare say to me, eat in the kitchen then. Besides, they'll see how beautiful I am and be ashamed. I too sing America. That poem was written less than 100 years ago, and it still resonates today. It still resonates today. the chant that we all use when we march. What do we want?
Justice.
When do we want it?
Now.
What do we want?
Justice.
When do we want it?
Now.
You see, I don't feel justice when I'm coming through West Hartford. I feel unsafe. I don't feel justice when I'm coming through 149 towns in the state of Connecticut because they're predominantly all white. In the state of Connecticut, there are 20 towns. I don't feel justice in the state of Connecticut because I have to put on a suit every single day. I have to think about what I'm going to wear when I step out of my house. I got 4 college degrees, and I got to think about what I'm going to put on. I got to think about at 43 years old if I should have children or not. I got to think about if I'm going to have that talk with my child. How are you going to be okay? Are you going to be safe? I got to think about when I go into a restaurant right here, right around the corner on Blueback Square, and think about how somebody's going to treat me when I walk in that restaurant. I don't feel justice. I don't feel safe. So as I stand here today, my white brothers and sisters, what can you do to help with justice and help black people feel safe? There are 3 steps I'm going to share with you today that are extremely important. First one, stand up. And when I mean stand up, be present in spaces like this in solidarity. Stand up and be present for black lives and brown lives and for people who have been historically disenfranchised in this country. Second one, speak up. Speak up in white spaces. Because when we are not present, you need to speak up. And let me bring it down to a human point of view. When you're in that house and you got family members, and I know many of you do, who say nasty and derogatory words, you don't want someone saying something to your family. You will speak up and say something if someone says something to your family. That's what I need you to do when you're in those spaces. I need you to speak up. And if you are at a bar, you in a restaurant, you hear a little comment, I don't need you to be aggressive in that tone, but I need you to say, this is not tolerated here in West Hartford. This will not be tolerated in West Hartford. We don't get down like this in West Hartford. You gotta stand up, speak up, and make sure that they understand. We're not 149 towns. We plan to progress. And the third one, very important, follow through. You gotta follow through. And what I mean by that is, when you look at your police department, you gotta say, geez, you know what? We need cultural competency training on the regular. We need implicit bias training on the regular. We need to make sure we have microaggression training. And let me give you an example of microaggression training. Yeah, she's pretty for a black girl. Oh yeah, he speaks very eloquent for a Latino male. I didn't know he speaks English so well. That's a microaggression. And that doesn't just need to happen with the police force and the fire department or anyone else. You gotta work on that in your community as well. Community forums, in the school system, all over, follow through. And one thing that's extremely important when you talk about training, my white brothers and sisters, you gotta reflect. This is everyday work. Everyday work. Check yourself every single day. This is everyday work. So you gotta stand up, you gotta speak up, and you gotta follow through. Repeat, stand up, speak up, and follow through. Repeat, stand up, speak up, and follow through. Repeat, stand up, speak up, and follow through. Repeat,
we walk out of here today, we're going to walk out of here and say, yeah, that was great. We came together in West Hartford. So what I need right now, I need 3 individuals right now who have courage to come right here and pledge what you want to do in your town. Because we're tired of talking. We're tired of talking. Stand right there, please. What are you going to pledge to do as you walk out of here today? What are you going to do? Today. This is what it's all about. These are action steps. We're tired of talking. People are dying. It was 8 minutes and 46 seconds that man lost his life. West Hartford, this is action. Say your name and what are you pledging to do for the town of West Hartford. Let's go.
My name is Susie Craig, and I'm going to educate my family. I'm going to take action every single day. I am going to vote, and I am going to make sure that my workplace is as diverse as it possibly can be, not just in the workforce, but in the leadership.
My name is Jared Sundberg. I'm going to teach my kids who are at home right now.
You got it, brothers.
I'm going to talk to my family. My past friends that are in conservative Christian circles and are silent. I'm going to talk to them every day. I'm going to talk to my family, and I'm going to stand up. I'm going to speak out, and I'm going to damn sure follow through.
My name is Carly Quadras. I'm an educator for West Hartford Public Schools, and I'm going to stand up and tell my black and brown students that they matter, and that we need to make noise so that our government reflects the fact that they matter. And I'm going to stand up and tell my white students that white supremacy is a sickness, and it's in us, and we are because of it, and we need to eradicate it. And that
starts with... So West Hartford, we going to what? Stand up, speak up, and follow through. Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter! 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 I need everyone to push on. Give you all a hug. Okay? Because this is what it takes in order for us to move together. Use this as a time to network, come together, and to empower your community to be a prime example for the entire state of Connecticut. Let's do it. I love you all.
Of color. There are 5 of us in my grade, not even one in every classroom sometimes. We're taught about the amazing white people, but never about people who look like us. I grew up thinking that because I didn't people like me doing the same amazing things, I couldn't do it. So when I saw Obama run for president, I said, I want to do that. I want to run for president. I'm not going to be old enough, I'm not going to be able to do that, or there will be a time where they won't let me. I will be able to make a change for people like me, who grew up thinking that we can do what we want to do because we don't see people like us doing it. Sorry. I know we're going to talk about my personal problems, but I feel this is not my problem. This is our problem. This is the world's problem. We can't have children growing up thinking they're not going to make it to see their children. You got me! My parents raised me to think that no matter where I go, no matter how I look, I can do it just as well as anyone else. So I fight every day to be the same recognition as any other kid in my school. I grow up.
We love you!
racing in my street. I want my mom to cry because I was killed in cold blood for no reason other than I'm black. So please, please educate your children. I have kids in my school who don't know what to do, who say they want to help but don't know how. I've had a fight multiple times asking them that we can't have a white girl play Tiana in our play. We can't have a white girl playing Mulan. We can't have a white girl playing Pocahontas. This is not right. They ask me why. It doesn't matter what color they are. It's as long as they're good at acting or good at singing. No, it does matter. When Tiana came out, I was so happy. I thought this was my piece, my thing that Disney made it just for me. So I wanted to be her so badly. And now to hear kids, when they talk about having Ariel be put as a black girl, the kids in my school are upset. Why are they upset? Because someone doesn't look like the type of person who was made for them. She was made for all of us. They were all made for all of us. Please educate your children. Let them know that there's not only kids like them. Let them experience people of other races, other religions, other sexualities. Let them grow up. And they don't know. They're scared, so they act and they do horrible things. At the age of 5, children have racial prejudice. I was at camp one year and this little boy stared at me, took his pen out at me and said, "I don't like brown people." This boy was 4 years old. He shouldn't be saying like that. He shouldn't know. He should be growing up thinking that we're all people. It doesn't matter how you look or anything. I didn't know whether to be hurt or just to laugh because I knew he didn't know. That wasn't the first time. I wish he didn't look the way I looked. So please educate your children so they don't end up like people. Please give it up. That's a 13-year-old voicing her message. We're here today because Black Lives Matter. Say it with me. Black Lives Matter! 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 Just because I'm white doesn't mean that I can't be a part of this. It doesn't mean that I can't fight for them. Because I'm white, I will never fully understand. I see people in this audience that are white. You will never fully understand. We will never fully understand. But that is not an excuse. That's a challenge. That's a challenge for us to try to understand, even though we never fully will. It's a challenge for us to educate ourselves, to meet Black people, to meet minorities, have conversations. If you don't know any minorities, look around you. There are people in this audience, make friends, have conversations, learn. As a white person, I thought I had a good understanding, and it wasn't until I dated a Black man that I started to really see it. I became scared when I didn't hear from him for a while, not knowing whether or not he was going to make it home. I felt a fraction of what minorities and what Black people feel on a daily basis, a fraction, and it hurt. Even after that experience, I know that I will never fully get it. Just that tiny bit of fear that I felt was enough for me to realize that it wasn't enough for me to just be not racist. We all need to be anti-racist. This is not white versus Black. This is racist versus anti-racist.
And we have to do something about it. Because I don't want to be sitting here with my future kids having the same thing happen. I see parents out here with kids in the audience. You don't want your kids to have the same experience that we're having right now. I don't want to be out there with my kids fighting for equality, because this should never have happened in the first place. But it's a reality, and it's what's happening, and we need to change it. Everybody in this audience needs to know that we need to educate ourselves, ask the questions, learn, because it's not going to change until we do that. It is not enough to stand in this audience and then do nothing after you leave here. So go home, educate yourselves, meet people, meet Black people, have conversations, try to understand.
My name is Devon Rose. I go to Hall High School. I want to speak for all the students. Everyone who's too scared to lose friendships, to say something, scared to speak out just because they're going to lose that little friend that they have that sits at the table all the time, that says that one joke at one time. Don't be scared to say something when they say the N-word one time. I go to one of the whitest schools ever. Do you know how many people say the N-word there, bro? Too many. You guys need to speak up, not be scared. Confront them. Don't be afraid to lose any relationship. Just forget about it. They're not your friends. If you think that's good, come on now. You don't know the definition of friend. Come on. Thank you all for coming out today. You guys are all strong. Thank you. Black Lives Matter.
I go to Conard High School, and I just wanted to say that a lot of people don't know the importance of voting. And I know it's been said by people before me, but America gave us this in case change was needed, and change is needed now. And so we need to all go out and vote, and it's important to do that. I was in my class one day, and one kid was asked if he was going to vote, and he said that he wasn't because he didn't want to. And I don't think that that's an excuse, because we need to make change now. And just because you don't want to vote doesn't mean you shouldn't vote.
Davis, and I'm a proud West Hartford educator. I teach 3rd grade, and when I started teaching in Virginia, where I was told if you come out as a lesbian, you will be fired. And that was by someone who considered themselves my friend. As I tried to teach, I had a lens of, I want to tell all the stories that I didn't get told. And I remember trying to find a book on Benjamin Banneker, and I couldn't find one. So I found a teacher who wrote a play and taught my kids a song instead. And when we talk about systematic racism, and I'm searching for books that have pictures of people who are white, and I have to dig. It's only the last maybe 5 years where publishers are actually making books about people of color and about women in history, and I celebrate because I can finally get my hands on them and not just tell the stories from my head, but give mirrors and images to the children in my class. And as this is Pride Month, I have to say thank you. I have to say thank you to a group of African American queer folk who rioted. Because my children have 2 married moms, and my children have both their parents on their birth certificate because African American queer folk rioted at Stonewall. We just celebrated our 50th year and of a movement that started because people said no more. They couldn't take it anymore, and they said, we've got to stop it. And the world is not done changing. But it moved forward because people stood up and said no. And they didn't say no nicely. They rioted. They were done. But it started a movement, and I would hate to see this movement not continue and make the world change, because it's a beautiful thing when this many people stand up and go, this is not okay. I grew up in the segregated South, and it was segregated even though it wasn't legally supposed to be. And I can remember everybody around me making jokes, racist jokes that I could not stand, that I was forced to listen to as a kid and became angry about. At least then I knew racism was bad. I could see what it did to my friends. My one African-American friend, Cornelius, who grew up with me because he was the only one in my class. And the pain that he went through as my friend. I got to see that. But up here, where it's less in your face, people think it's okay. Things aren't so bad. It's not true. Things are still that bad, and we can't let go of this movement. And we have to make the world a better place, because until we all stand together, we all stand alone.
Hello. It took a lot of effort and courage to walk up here and say something. I understand the identity that I carry and how important representation is. So I was afraid to come up here because I didn't have anything written or ready to share with you guys. After listening to a bunch of my brothers and sisters share their stories, I thought it was important to share a bit of mine. I've been living in West Hartford for 20 years now, and I'm part of a very small minority group. We're from South Asia, India, Punjab. I'm part of the Sikh community. Sikh means student. That's what I identify as, a student. It quite literally translates to student. We are all universal students. We're all in this together. I have a lot of hateful stories to share, negative stories, dark stories, but I also have a lot of positive stories full of light. And I have to thank the town of West Hartford for allowing me to feel safe here, for allowing me to walk up to this platform in these clothing, with the star on my head, with my crown on, and to share my voice. That's quite literally the power of kindness. I grew up in Queens, New York. I went to P.S. 62. I had below average grades there. My parents moved to West Hartford in 1999, and my grades shot up just by going to school. Little effort. I went to Smith, Stella, and then I went back to University of Manhattan, New York, and I saw the stark difference that privilege can provide for us. But I see hope. I show up to an event like this and I see hope. One of my friends is actually standing in this crowd. She's Caucasian, and she called me last week and she said, Ishri, what can I do as a white female? I think that phone call, enough was action. It's a catalyst. And if every one of us picked up the phone and asked our brothers and sisters, what can we do? That desire, that yearning for change in itself is the matchstick that we all need.
Thank you everybody for coming out. My name is Matt Vanaver, and I really want to thank every single human being who came out, especially the people who it was tough, but the kneeling down for 8 minutes, I had to do that at the last protest we had, and it really made me think about how much you have to not care about another person's life to be in that uncomfortable position, and that really really put it in perspective to me, just how important it is that we keep this movement up. Now, I come from a very mixed family. I'm adopted. I was born in Honduras. My parents have 5 kids of their own, and they're white. My parents are white. Their kids are white. They adopted 5 more kids. 4 kids from Honduras, and my youngest sister's from Haiti. 2 of my sister-in-laws are one's from Taiwan and one's from the Philippines, and my brother-in-law is Canadian. So I have a very, very mixed family, and I want everybody here to really grasp the importance of not getting it versus understanding it. I have so many of my white friends who want to come up to me and they want to ask me, I don't get it, how can I help? How can you teach me more about what this struggle is? It's okay to not get it. It's okay that you will never understand what it's like to be a different color. It's okay to have empathy, but you have to be willing to learn from every human being around you, every person that you come encounter with. Everybody's race does not define who they are. And it's really important that we take the importance of movements and protests. But this is great, but the fight doesn't stop here. The fight is on 4th of July weekend. We're sitting around with our family members, and that one uncle or aunt that we have makes that joke. It's so important that that's when we stand up, that's when we voice our opinions. People's race doesn't define who they are, where they came from. You never know who you're going to meet. You never know who you're going to interact with. Take in everything from every single person. Up until 2 minutes ago, you had no idea somebody like me with this story was standing amongst you. You had no idea about every single person up here who was standing before you. They were standing right next to you the whole time. Don't just learn something when somebody's up in front of you with a microphone. Learn something after every interaction. It's so important. Lastly, I really want to address this concept of being colorblind. I know that a lot of white families raise their kids to be colorblind. That is wrong. That is not the way. When you're colorblind, you take away all of the struggle and all of the triumph that people of color go through. If you're colorblind, making a joke about being deported just seems like a joke. You have no idea how many times I get those jokes, how many times so many people in this audience get those jokes. It's not funny. It never was. It's never going to be. But when you're colorblind, you don't understand the gravity of those situations. Don't be colorblind. And when you're teaching your kids about different colors, and you're teaching your kids about black people, and you come to this realization like, wait, I don't get it. I don't have the right linguistic capabilities. You understand how the education system has failed us to understand the importance of race in this country. We all come from different backgrounds. We all come from different places. And when one race dictates the entire curriculum, you set up a generation for failure. So I want you all to really embrace who you are as individuals. Talk to somebody. Don't just leave here after this. Grab the person next to you and just say, hey, give me a couple pointers about your life. You're not going to learn everything about them, but it's a place to start. Thank you so much.
Today, when I came here, actually, my father said, what are they protesting? And I come from a very small rural community where essentially the entire population is white and upper class, and there is silence. So I just want to say a few words to address this problem: white complicity and white silence, which is violence. Now, more than ever, our world is dark, uncertain, and chaotic. It is filled with horrors both real and imagined, seemingly in every direction and corner that we look. We try to paint a fragile veneer over it, and some of the white community is able to. But for many of us, the majority of the country, are not and have to live with it every single day. We are torn and divided between the need to work and the need to live a normal life despite everything going on. We are split by the challenge of grappling with the drastic changes shaking our society and the need to try to protect ourselves and the ones we love. And for the majority of us to struggle, invisibly often, under the yoke of systemic oppression. All while trying to find some peace and stability through the fear and the darkness.
No peace. No peace.
When I was younger, I used to complain that I don't get seen as my race because I'm a proud Black person, but I don't have the skin to match it. But now I see it as a privilege because I can stand up for others who are too scared to, because it will actually affect their lives. If you stand up and you're Black, you can get killed. But if you stand up and you're white, your chances are such less likely. And even though I am Black, I look white. So I will continue to help my brothers and sisters because I will never understand what you go through. I don't get stopped by anyone and get scared that I am about to get shot. I will stand up because I have the privilege to when others don't. And I understand that.
Injustice is horrifying, and it's not something that a Black student should have to endure in my school, high school, even elementary school. And I think it's just horrible that our law enforcement can be this corrupt and can just use their oath where they said to serve and protect, to exploit their power. So I hope you guys speak out, talk to people who aren't as educated, and thank you for coming here.
Once again, I would like to thank every single one of you that showed up today. Give yourself a round of applause. My name is Ferreira, a rising sophomore at Towson University, and I will never stop. Never stop fighting for what's right. Never stop fighting against the injustices occurring in this nation. I will be the change I want to see in this world. And I want you all to be the change as well. It takes one person to inspire. It takes one person to start the movement. The movement has begun. We will stand as one. Keep your signs up. Keep your voices up. Keep the energy here. West Hartford, Connecticut, we love you and we thank you all for coming. Thank you once again, everybody.
Black Lives Matter! 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 Yeah!
I would just like to say a quick thank you to all our speakers. If we could have a round of applause for them. As Belly said, keep your signs, keep your voices, and keep your energy. We will be planning a march in the upcoming weeks, and we hope to see you there. Thank you.
One thing that inspired us to do the protest is just knowing that West Hartford needs a lot more Black leadership, and knowing that the climate that we're in, I was not okay sitting at home and watching the protests. And even though there were protests in West Hartford before, I think it was important that this one was student-led, and it was led by Black students at that. So I think it was important that we had a bunch of different range of speakers come, and I think it was really moving to see community people just come out and run up to the stage and speak. It just showed that a lot of people cared, and yeah, it was really moving. Kenia also helped out too.
Once I first saw the video of what happened to George Floyd, it was just tears, and I didn't know what to do, so I did what I usually do, which is I go to my mentor, who is Mr. Hines. He's assistant principal at Concord High School, and I emailed him my frustration, my confusion as to why that would still happen in the world we are today. But as I said in my speech, we haven't progressed as much as we really think we did. And so we all had a group meeting over Google Meets with Eshe and my future educators of diversity. And we were just voicing our concerns, but we understood that that wasn't enough. We had to do something about it. So our protest today was us doing something about it.
What inspired me to come is just knowing that people who are not directly affected by this, as people who are not people of color, being able to actually come out here and see this. And I was on Facebook a couple of days ago, and I see even doctors walking around Bushnell and protesting. And also the fact that young people in high school and sometimes younger are the one putting this together for me, it just felt inspiring, and it made me wonder, like, what can I really do? And part of the answer is go there and make your voice heard, and making people feel like you are part of this as well. So that's what really inspired me.
What inspired me to come, I was inspired by the youth. The youth actually asked me to come, and just their energy, their passion to want to create, change the community here and talk about some of the inequalities that exist within the town of West Hartford. And it just inspired me to say, I want to be part of this movement here in this town as well. And what I hope that everyone can take away from my speech today is 3 steps. Stand up, speak up, and follow through. Because let's really continue to work on some of those policies. Let's continue to make sure that we're actively involved in our community by creating implicit bias training, making sure it's in the community, as well as through the police department and the fire department. Let's work on making sure we have cultural diversity training, microaggression training, and just continue working on ourselves internally so that we can be better human beings, so that we can continue to impact our community in a positive way. That's what I hope that everyone takes away from our presentation today. Thank you.